So you mentioned deliverance ministry, which is fascinating to me. There's so many different ideas of what this is and new inventions of what is a deliverance minister. And I'm curious for your group, what does that mean to you? When you say deliverance ministry, what does it mean to be a deliverance minister?
There is no such thing, actually. And it's so funny because I was trying to find it before I got on this with you because I was going to read them to you. I'll send them to you another time. But there were a list of probably 10 things the whole time I was in this and doing deliverance ministry that were, I would call like checks in my spirit, like things that make you go, type things that never sat well with me, but I just kept pushing away and saying, don't worry about that, Mystica. Don't worry about that. It'll make sense some other time. So even with the deliverance ministry that I got deep into, I would not allow anyone to call me a deliverance minister. And they would try to force me into that. And I would say, I have never seen a such thing in the Bible, so I just don't feel comfortable with you calling me a deliverance minister. What I was convinced of, however, is that I was an evangelist. And because I was an evangelist, I was going to have to deal with demons, with people being demonized. And so I reconciled that because it got coupled in with this NAR church. The previous church had nothing to do with demons. No one in 11 years ever manifested a demon, lo and behold, in their service. And I knew nothing about that. But when I got more involved in street ministry, I was dealing with people being demonized. And then here I got connected with this church who fully believed and taught specifically that a born-again believer could have indwelling demons. So I'm like, aha, okay, I need to do this because this is going to be what I'm going to encounter. And it just kind of was the perfect storm, is like the small version of a long story of how that happened. And once I started doing that, I started to get a name for myself that I wasn't trying to get, and it seemed to be working. Or so I thought, and so the people thought. All I was doing was just messing around with demons all the time. I mean, the demons were very real, but these people weren't converts. I thought that they were converts, and they thought they were converts. So I fully believed that a born-again believer could have demons in them. And this church taught that. So instead of the church correcting me on biblical matters and saying, wait, Mystica, let's talk about this. This is not what the Bible said. They fully supported that. And it just, if that makes sense, it just became a perfect storm, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, I would pray for people, not as a deliverance minister, because there was that part of me that knew the truth. It was always the truth mixed with a lie. And I knew the truth that a deliverance minister didn't exist, and it always got under my skin when people called themselves that. So like the demon slayers out there on social media, I'd be like, why are they calling themselves a demon slayer? Why are they calling themselves a deliverance minister? That is not biblical. But everything I was doing was, I don't want to say it wasn't biblical, because people are demonized, but people need the gospel. And so when you're translated according to Colossians 1:13, when you are truly converted, you are taken out of the kingdom of darkness and put into the kingdom of his son. Christ is the deliverer. So that is the deliverance right there. And then what you deal with is your sin thereafter in your walk of salvation. But I had this all twisted. I thought that every bad behavior was a demon.
Yeah.
So if we just get rid of the demon, you'll be fine. And this was completely fostered and supported and amped up by the church that I was in.
I'm convinced that these deliverance ministries is no different than all of these churches. They're just simply trying to create the idea of Ghostbusters in the church, but they don't get the cool gadgets.
Oh, please. It's so much more fun when it gives us something to do. Now, you take me, I'm a clinical therapist. I help people for a living. That's obviously a gift that God has given me, right? So I am by nature a helpful person. And I actually care about the gospel, and I care about people coming to Christ. what a mix if that gets even a little bit twisted with the wrong understanding of scripture. It can create a monster. So it was so fun. It was so, John, I gotta admit, I'm a fighter, like by nature. Like, I like to fight. I went into the military. I don't know if you know that, but I was actually in the Army. And that is a part of me. I think I have that aggressive side. We all have different parts of our personality. And I think I have just an aggressive side. And that fed that aggressive side that I got to fight. I got to fight demons every day. And I think that's what people like, because don't we by nature have, especially men, have an aggressive side. So these demon slayers get to aggressively go after demons every day. And if that makes sense, that's how I understand it now. It gives us something to do. It gives us something that's important. It makes people feel like they're getting free, and we're helping them to do that. So it just hits all those things.
Have you ever wondered how the Pentecostal movement started, or how the progression of modern Pentecostalism transitioned through the latter rain, charismatic, and other fringe movements into the New Apostolic Reformation? You can learn this and more on William Branham Historical Research's website, william-branham.org. On the books page of the website, you can find the compiled research of John Collins, Charles Paisley, Stephen Montgomery, John McKinnon, and others, with links to the paper, audio, and digital versions of each book. You can also find resources and documentation on various people and topics related to those movements. If you want to contribute to the cause, you can support the podcast by clicking the Contribute button at the top. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe to the audio or video version that you're listening to or watching. On behalf of William Branham Historical Research, we want to thank you for your support. So I grew up in the Branham cult, and we didn't have what we called quote-unquote deliverance ministers, but we had the same thing. The ministers gave this very fantastic world where everything's a demon. You could accidentally catch a demon if you went outside. And, for the adults, they're looking to these ministers to be the ones who can help them get rid of their accidentally caught demon, which is so odd when you think of it. But for children that are in the movement, this is problematic because they believe this stuff to levels beyond what the adults do, in my opinion. And the children really, really struggle because they fear these demons. And, oh my gosh, if I go outside and do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, I might actually get this demon that comes in my body and then have to go through this horrific process of being exercised or whatever they call it. But I'm curious, in your movement, is it the same? How does it affect the children, and do they suffer in the same way?
Yes, that was at the time I thought was so amazing that children got to be part of what real church looks like, because I had the mindset for so long that the church had to stand up. The church wasn't speaking up. The church was afraid of deliverance. The church was afraid of demons. And now I was finally part of a place that wasn't afraid of the gospel. See, that became the new gospel, was the gospel that had to do with taking Satan down every day. And the Bible warns us of that. Like, that's a different gospel, but I thought it was the real gospel. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you said fear-based, because that's the underlying thing of these organizations is fear. It's all based on fear. And you're always afraid of getting a demon in you, on you, around you. It's Dawn Hill talks about this. She put it the best way when she said they make Satan sovereign. So they would never admit to that. They'd look at you like you were crazy if you said you were making Satan sovereign, but Satan was constantly talked about. Demons were constantly talked about. Now you have children in that mix, which at the time I thought, what a beautiful thing. How weird is that, right? That I thought that was good.